Hello, everyone. My name is Rick van Bruggen from Neotechnology, and I'm here again recording a podcast episode with someone in my own country. That's actually I don't think that's happened before. Dirk Vermeylen from HP Enterprise is joining me from a couple of miles down the road on a phone call. Dirk, welcome.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks.
Hey, cheers. Thanks for coming online. And we got to know each other because of some graph gists that you created recently, which we'll talk about more a little bit later. But why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners first of all?
Hi. Well, Dirk Vermeylen, I'm working for HPE. We used to work for EDS, so that was taken over by HP, then became HPE, and there's some changes in the future as well. I work now as a consultant in the service delivery and infrastructure environment.
Okay. And what's your relationship to the wonderful world of graphs, Dirk? How do you get into that, if I may ask?
It is more or less by accident. As part of service delivery, a lot of work is done on configuration databases on CMDBs, where what we need to do is migrate CMDBs and querying CMDBs on, for example, what is important is you want to know what servers are implemented in a specific data center and what applications are related to it. There are many relations in between, like server databases that are installed, instances, business services that are configured on it. So you have all sets of relationships. We need to work with it, and I was looking into better ways on how we can manage the data on it. Then Neo4j was mentioned in when reading the internet. So at some point in time, I thought I may give this a try.
Super cool.
I did it, and it worked. In fact, it worked very well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that are using Neo4j for configuration management databases because of the relationship-centric view and the impact analysis that it allows you to do, right? So if something happens in your configuration, what's the impact on the rest of the configuration? Is that also your case, or was that your background as well?
Exactly. And the advantage is that when you do queries, actually Neo4j allows to document them very well. The Cypher way of working is a very nice way of documentation. It reads easier than you do with complex SQL queries with joins and all of that. That's a bit more tricky to understand what you have been doing a couple of days later.
Absolutely. I so many people talk to us about that. That's great to hear. But you ended up writing that graph gist for something completely different, right? What was that all about? It was about your running partners, right?
That's right. That came. I was working on CMDBs as also a little bit in my free time. At some point, you have don't I know if you're ready with it. At that time, the Graphist challenge appeared, and it said, try to do this problem. If you can do it on a whiteboard, it will work. In my free time, I try to collect information about our running competition, which is just like we go running with a couple of friends. First that arrives in a race gets 50 points, second 45, third 40 points, and so on. And then we just add them all up together, and at the end of the year, you have like a winner for fun and for motivation. No, we keep track of these points in an Excel spreadsheet. I wanted to automate that because automation is fun. And I tried to make a big draw the problem, and it worked very well at the same time as the Graphist challenge. So I thought probably I should spend a little bit more time and work on this Graphist challenge.
Super cool. I will put a link to your actual graph gist on the blog post with this episode as well. But so what was so nice about it? What was it that made the graph gist and Neo4j such a good fit for that particular running assignment that you wanted to solve?
Graphist was easy to use. You need the ASCII doctor, which is like you take Notepad, plain text, and then with a very little markup or markdown, as it was called, you can specify a query and see the result actually directly in the GraphSys. So, and Neo4j is very visual, so you create like when one query, you see a little bit of the dots already, and then you say, I need a second query, and from the second query go to the third query. So it's very visual. It allows you to very quickly progress in your problem field.
Very, very nice. Wow. I bet your running buddies were happy with the result.
Well, I didn't show it to them already. Yeah, part of the thing is that I used test results, which means that the races are correct, the people are correct, but the sequence of arrival is not correct in the GraphSys. So I'm not sure if they will be so happy with what I've shown there.
You made yourself win every time.
Not me. No, not me. Someone else, but it's free-rich test data.
I understand. Very cool. All right. Well, so what do you want to use this for in the future, Dirk? Is this? Are you going? Do you have any more professional or personal plans with this, or where do you want to take this in the future?
Yeah, part of the GraphSys as well was to get more experience with Cypher. I used it for CMDB. The challenge with the configuration management database is that you have like 20,000 objects and 18,000 relations. So if you launch a query, it may or it may not end up with the result that you were expecting because of lack of experience. With my very small example, it's a lot easier to understand what you're doing. And where I want to take it in the future is configuration management databases, of course. Also on open data. I'm more and more involved in open data, and open data is all about linked data, and with linked data you're very close to Neo4j and these graphical relations again.
Super. Well, I mean, I think we will meet again, Dirk, because that's exactly the type of stuff that I've been working on in the meetups here in Belgium as well, and I'm sure we'll have a chat about this in the future then. Very cool. Anything else you want to add, Dirk? Is there anything that we should be paying attention to in your work, or otherwise, I think we'll keep this podcast recording short.
That's perfect. Yeah, I'm happy with what Neo4j was doing already. I was working on Neo4j version 2, and Python Neo is very important. The Python library. Yep. I had a little bit of issues, but I've seen that the new version of Neo4j and the new version of Python Neo solve them like all. So I'm looking forward to play around with these.
Well, it's summertime, this is the perfect time to experiment with those types of things. All right, Dirk, thank you so much for sharing your work with us and with the entire community. I really appreciate it, and thank you for coming online to doing this, to do this recording. And I'm sure we'll meet very soon.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks. It was nice doing this.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.